What's up, guys? We have another great start sit video for you today. These are my starts at QB for week 13. First off, I'm starting Justin Herbert. The Chargers are really banged up on defense, and they are missing starting running back J.K. Dobbins. This is a game where they might have to throw a lot to keep up, and therefore I like Herbert to get good volume in this one. I also like starting Kirk Cousins. He gets a tough matchup on paper, but the Chargers are missing a starting cornerback, safety, and linebacker, and have another linebacker questionable. I like all of the Falcons' skill position players in this game and expect Cousins to be efficient in the passing game. This week, I would also be starting Joe Burrow. This is a tough matchup versus the Steelers, but Alex Highsmith looks like he will be out another week, and Burrow has been dealing. The Bengals prefer to run their offense through the passing game, and I think they will lean heavily on Burrow in this one. And my long shot start for the week is Bryce Young. The Bucks are incredibly banged up on defense this week, and Bryce Young is starting to look like a starting caliber quarterback. This week I'm sitting Brock Purdy. The weather is expected to be bad in Buffalo, and Buffalo is a formidable defense. The 49ers are probably the most injured team in the league right now, and I don't love this spot for Purdy. I'm also sitting Kyler Murray. Murray has struggled mightily on the road this season, and he's going up against a good Vikings defense. Murray always has the potential to pop off for big games, but I think there are better options this week. And finally, I'm sitting Aaron Rodgers. The Jets O line is still very banged up, and the Seahawks are playing good defense as of late. I wouldn't even want to start Rodgers in Superflex leagues this week.
Here are your starts and sits at the running back position. First up, we have Chuba Hubbard of the Carolina Panthers. He's been a stud all season long. Even with Brooks back, Chuba is still the guy and should get the bulk of the carries. They have a great matchup against a bottom 10 defense in Tampa Bay. Next, we have Najee Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Look for Steelers to try to slow this game down against the Bengals and ride Harris to another W. Finally, Brian Robinson, Washington Commanders. Eckler's out, and the Titans are middle of the pack against the run, so look for Brian Robinson to have a good day. Finally, your long shot, Gus Edwards. With Dobbins out, Gus will get the bulk of the snaps and should fall into the end zone for at least one touchdown. Your sits for the week. We have James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals. The Vikings are top five against the run, and look for the game script to force the Cardinals to have to pass. Now, Rajon Robinson, he is a stud, so he'll be hard to sit, but he's facing a top 10 defense, and the other games when he's faced top defense, he has underperformed. Finally, Derrick Henry, Baltimore Ravens. If you not notice, he's starting to run out a little bit of juice. He has underperformed four of his last five games, and look for that trend to continue against a top five Eagles defense.
Week 13 wide receiver start sits. You're going to be thankful if you start these guys. First up, Tank Dell of the Houston Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Listen, I know his targets have dipped since Nico Collins came back, but so has the skill of the guys he is lining up against. Last week, he still had 3 catches for 72 yards, so he's making the most of it, and this game could be a potential shootout. We're also starting Ladd McConkey of the Los Angeles Chargers. They are at the Atlanta Falcons. Listen, ATL, they've been giving up the fourth most points to wide receivers in PPR formats. And McConkey, he has been averaging 14.2 yards per catch this year. We're also starting Mike Evans of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are at the Carolina Panthers, so decent matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Last week was his first game back from injury. He was second in targets, second in receptions. Expect him to become that number one guy again in that offense. The long shot of the week is coming from the Broncos versus the Browns. We've got Devon Vele. Nix is getting better, which means Vele is going to get better, as well as Courtland Sutton. And last week, he had 9 targets, 6 catches for 80 yards. That is our long shot this week. You're going to be thankful if you sit these following guys. Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's just be honest. Philadelphia defense has been locking it down. Their last 7 games, only 3 wide receivers have hit double-digit points in PPR formats. Those are Jamar Chase, Puka Nacua, and Cooper Kupp. Those are 3 of the top 15 guys. Actually, 2 of those guys are top 1 and 2 in PPR format. So let's just face it, Zay Flowers, he don't got the juice like that. Jerry Judy we're sitting, as well as Jerry Reinsdorf. Sell the team, Jerry. If your name's Jerry, we're benching you. Jerry Jeudy of the Browns at the Denver Broncos. Listen, Patrick Surtain, he's locking down any and every wide receiver. He is top 5 in fantasy points per route run in PPR formats. So stay away from anybody playing any wide receiver 1 playing against the Denver Broncos. We're also sitting Deebo Samuel of the San Francisco 49ers at the Buffalo Bills. That's in our Sunday night matchup. Samuel only boasting 2 TDs all year. And this is a cross-country game. Cold weather, bad leather. It's going to be nighttime, so even chillier than what he's used to. I'm avoiding that matchup.
Here are some tight ends to start and sit in fantasy football in Week 13. First up, I like starting David Njoku on Monday night against Denver. Cleveland will likely be without Cedric Tillman at wide receiver, so Jerry Jeudy and Njoku should see the bulk of the targets from Jameis Winston in this game. The weather in Denver is forecasted to be in the 30s with no precipitation, so it shouldn't be a storyline. Next up, I really like Cade Otton's matchup this week against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are giving up the most points to opposing tight ends this season, and they just gave up 2 touchdowns to Noah Gray last week. I like Otton to find the end zone and put up somewhere between 4 to 6 catches. Next, I'm starting Taysom Hill against the Rams. This is Hill's first game action since his legendary performance against the Browns in Week 11. His interim head coach just expressed confidence in him when he said that his recent usage of 8 to 12 touches per game is where they want him to be every week. The Rams are giving up the 9th most points to opposing tight ends, and Hill is a threat to run, pass, and catch the ball. And lastly, my long shot start of the week is Will Dissly against the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons are giving up the 12th most points to opposing tight ends this season, and Dissly is averaging over 6 targets per game over his past 6 weeks. He's still only 43% owned in Yahoo leagues, so if you're dealing with an injury at your tight end spot, he could be a really nice play. Moving on to our sits for Week 13, I like sitting Evan Ingram against the Texans. The Texans are one of the best defenses in the league at stopping opposing tight ends. Ingram is seeing good volume over the past several weeks, but his production has been minimal against similarly ranked defenses. Next up, I think it's smart to sit Kyle Pitts this week against the Chargers. The Chargers defense is top 10 at stopping fantasy tight ends this season, and Pitts has only surpassed 3 targets in one of his last 3 games. The story with Pitts is never about his talent, but rather his usage, and we just can't trust him this week. And finally, I'm sitting Mark Andrews. Andrews is going up against a tough Philadelphia Eagles defense, and he hasn't been targeted more than 7 times in the game all season. The Eagles defense gives up a little more to opposing wide receivers than it does to tight ends, so Zay Flowers may be the focal point for the Ravens' passing attack in this game. Here are some defenses to start and sit in fantasy football in Week 13. First up, I like starting Washington against Tennessee. My theory on defenses is that if you can get a monster game out of a defensive unit, then you will likely win your fantasy matchup. And anytime a defense goes against a turnover-prone quarterback, that gives them a great chance to have a big week. Will Levis is a turnover machine who takes way too many sacks, and he looks like the Titans' third-string quarterback of the future. Next up, I'm starting Buffalo against San Francisco. Heavy snowfall is expected before and potentially during this game. The conditions could be like a blizzard, which means it will greatly reduce both teams' ability to throw the ball and kick field goals, meaning that both teams will likely run quite frequently, reducing the amount of total plays and total points scored. Logically, my next defense to start is the 49ers. The Bills have a great offense, but it's hard for any game to be a shootout in a blizzard. And finally, my long shot start of the week is the Colts defense against New England. New England struggled on offense last week and barely found the end zone in the fourth quarter. The Colts have an average defense, and they're only owned in 31% of leagues on Yahoo. So if you don't have any better options, they're definitely a defense worth streaming. And this week I like sitting Baltimore against Philadelphia. Philadelphia has a great passing attack led by A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, and the Ravens have struggled all year to stop the passing game. Saquon Barkley also looks amazing right now, so I think the 80% of you who own the Baltimore D should consider another option this week. I'm also sitting the Rams versus the Saints this week. The Rams are a popular streaming option, but I think there are better options out there as the Saints have played better as of late and are coming off their bye week. I think the Rams could struggle to stop Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara in this one. And finally, I'm sitting the Broncos defense on Monday night against the Browns. If I didn't have a better option, I wouldn't actually sit them, but I like the Browns to play better than expected and for the Broncos to finish under the projection. Jameis Winston played well in prime time last week, and Nick Chubb is still a force at the goal line for the Browns, so I expect them to put up points in a close loss on Monday night.